Today we're having Larry, our good friend of the show, and we're going to talk about Taiwan and a lot of things that most people probably don't really know. We're going to talk about what is going on the ground on Taiwan, what the people really think, not what the government says. Larry, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Mr. Fong? Good to be here again.
Yes, it's a regular show, right? Almost.
That's right. That's right. Oh,
Yeah.
totally.
By the way, the headphones are also from Taiwan.
Oh, good. Is it MSI?
I actually forgot the brand.
Oh, it doesn't matter.
Super Lux or something is written on it. I don't know.
Oh, cool, cool.
Yeah. Um, so a lot of things happened since the last talk. You were talking about how actually your views changed on China. And then later I asked you, can you also talk about what the people on the ground in Taiwan itself think about certain subjects, right? And
Hmm.
yeah, I gave a lot of homework.
Well, there's been an uptick. I believe the people that supported any type of talk of reunification or peaceful reunification was under 10%, was single digit. But recently, it's jumped up to over 20% by a recent poll. I don't know the details of the poll, but I believe the poll was done in a decent way. I've seen a few commentators talk about it. So this recent trip with the KMT chairwoman Zheng Liwen, she met Xi recently, right? And it was considered a bit of a gamble to some people. People within her party as well saw it as like kind of a risky move, especially the old guard. But she went ahead and met with Xi Jinping, and it seems like it's had a positive effect in Taiwan in
uh,
terms of perception of China.
so you say that a lot of people or a couple of people were skeptic, also in her own party.
Oh yeah, big time.
What is it that they actually are afraid of, or actually, yeah?
Well, there was a lot of infighting too, and from what I heard, severe schisms inside the KMT. So the KMT has a pro America camp. Like you'll see Zhao Kang, he was on the KMT ticket in the last election. He'll say stuff like in support of releasing Jimmy Lai, and he'll say stuff that makes it sound like Jimmy Lai is innocent and he deserves to be released. And I think this is a signal that Zhao Kang and his friends and allies within the KMT, some of them do toe the Washington deep state line, and you can see that they're part of the narrative that wants to contain China. So people like Zhao Kang, ZKS for short, um, they are the pro America camp within KMT. They probably don't ever want a full reunification. They enjoy the status quo, and they may have a lot of history working closely with the Americans. People say Taiwan wants to stay under status quo, but I myself, along with a few others, would contend that Taiwan's status quo has always been ambiguous, and it's always been sometimes we're closer to China, sometimes we're closer to America. Um, Things are certainly changing now. Now with America under Trump and kind of a mask off moment that we're all experiencing.
Yeah, how do the people actually feel? Because I believe, were there also weapons retracted from Taiwan itself? Because they did that with South Korea, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. I haven't followed that part too closely. I just know that the number is now over 30 billion in terms of undelivered military equipment that we've already paid for. Um, The number used to be like 16 billion. That was already very big. Now it's over 30, and this is a huge number for Taiwan, right? Taiwan's economy might benefit from TSMC and AI, and the stock market is doing well. But for the everyday person who doesn't play the stock market, for the auntie running the scallion pancake stalls at the night market, I think Taiwan is getting more difficult to live in and do business in.
Right.
I think the people in general are getting tired of 抗中保台, which means it's basically the anti-China narrative. 抗中, be against China and protect Taiwan.
Yeah. So
And
because they can't earn money or something.
well, I think it's also the fact that for the last 10 years, people are starting to ask, what has DPP accomplished other than put us into like an adversarial position against China? Taiwan's gained international recognition and Taiwan's gained, uh, people's praises, but it's just talk. What material conditions have changed in Taiwan? What are we going to do about our electricity and energy issues? And what's our economic outlook for the future? These are things that the DPP doesn't really seem to talk about. A thought just came to my mind was when KMT chairwoman Zheng Liwen was in China mainland, she said she was shocked because her mainland Chinese counterparts came to her was saying, "Hey, we've been looking at Taiwan. Look at this. Look at these details in this sector, and this is our plan to help Taiwan. What do you think about this?" And she said, I'm so surprised because in Taiwan, I spend all my time basically doing political battles. Basically spending all my time uh, battling with the DPP in a political manner. Whereas the people in mainland China, they're ready to get down to business. They're ready to, do some work to actually improve the material conditions of the people in Taiwan. Whereas I think a lot of Taiwanese people are sick and tired of the big political show, and KMT has receives its skepticism and criticism too.
Yeah, I think that is everywhere in the neoliberal world, or
Mhm.
what they want to call democracies. Yeah, it's the same as in my country. They have debates every single day, and I'm just trying to tell people it's just for show. They have
Mhm.
so much time to debate, literally the entire day. They're not doing anything else than debating. When are they actually working?
Mhm.
Right? All those issues of 10 years ago, they're still debating about it. So it's just for
Yeah,
show.
yeah.
They,
People will say that the DPP and the KMT they argue on TV, but later on they get together to have dinner, have some drinks,
yeah, probably.
probably.
Yeah, but it's everywhere the same, right? And you can't blame them because they need to stay in power. So to stay in power,
Right.
you need to have your voice heard in the news, and to do that, you can only be busy with one thing, right? You
It's
cannot do
true.
your propaganda all day and also do some real work. It's impossible, right?
Yeah, yeah. You would hope that the people below them are doing some real work, but in Taiwan, it doesn't seem to be the case.
Yeah, in
It's
my
just a
country
political
also.
class fight for power and control.
Yeah, in my country it's the same.
Hmm.
And I think it's in all neoliberal democracies. It's literally the same thing, right? Everybody. That is why everybody is unhappy, unsatisfied with how things are going.
Yes,
So
yes, definitely.
yeah, but some countries also don't know. There are people in the Netherlands, and they just follow the show, and then they get angry with what they call the other side, right?
Mhm.
And they have huge fights, and over just propaganda. Just
Yeah, I think we see that in Canada too. Um, one theory is that when things are good, people tend to ignore politics more.
yeah,
And I think a lot of Canadians for the last 2 decades, they could get away with just completely ignoring it. But now people are going like, what's going on? What's with my grocery and gas bill? What's happening?
Exactly, but that is why they need to start to get interested in politics and learn
I
about it
agree.
and understand the mechanics of politics and economy. Because, I mean, did you see the street interviews of Trump supporters about tariffs?
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, seriously. And then they say, I didn't vote for this. And then the other person will say, yes, you did. He blatantly told you so. He will place tariffs on everybody. And then and then they say, but he told us the other countries would pay. Yeah, right. Like,
yeah. It's
don't you
kind of like
know that a
Brexit, right?
tariff who's paying that? Right?
It's like when people in the UK were shocked that they voted for Brexit, but they weren't actually. It's just yeah. It's the state of the world. It's people's attention span. It's the internet. It's the media. It's the media is certainly not responsible. They're just trying to get as many eyeballs as possible. And I think a lot of Americans feel betrayed from the ones I talk to on debate spaces. They Trump said no more wars, right? No new wars, and
Yeah.
that's a major promise that was broken. A lot of people, you don't see as many people wearing MAGA hats anymore.
Ah,
There's definitely been a shift.
maybe that's because of the extra tariffs on Chinese goods. Because his hats are coming from China. They become too
Yeah,
expensive.
that's definitely part of it.
So you also were talking about the weapons that never are being delivered to Taiwan, but they constantly are paying for it. How do the people react to that?
Well, there's still a core 20 to 35% of people. This number is shrinking as DPP loses popularity. But there are people who really, they're ideologically captured, and they really do believe that China is an evil monster that needs to be resisted and fought against. And that, yeah, we might have paid for these weapons and they're not delivered yet, but America is the best ally we have, and we have to trust them, and we shouldn't be skeptical. So there is a small number of people that believe that. Not that small. Like I said, it used to be like 30-40%, but that number is dwindling. I would say the majority of Taiwanese are interested to have some sort of diplomacy and peace with the mainland. They're not ready for full reunification. They've been used to status quo for a long time. I think peaceful reunification is still far away, and there's going to be some hurdles to overcome. But overall, from what I see, Taiwanese people do not want to get locked into some sort of real conflict with China. Um,
No. Is there a debate about it that might happen? I mean, when they look at Ukraine and how also the South China Sea, like the Philippines, South Korea, Japan, are being boosted in military spending, and all to basically attack China, right? They call it counter, but
yeah.
China isn't being aggressive, so there's nothing to counter.
Right. It's the narrative, right? They
Yeah,
they can, sometimes you used to hear 10 years ago a lot, China is pointing their weapons at Taiwan. But now I think more people in Taiwan are realizing, there's a lot of American military bases and assets in the area. So I think more Taiwanese people are increasing their level of information. And there's constant debates on debates are very popular on TV shows. Taiwan is a very political place in general, so I think people are more political and aware in general. But at the end of the day, people say, "What can we really do? We other than vote, we can't really change too much." The people who are very passionate, they go on the streets and they protest, but it doesn't seem to have any sort of major effect or any material effect. So I think more and more people, they're open to diplomacy with China, but they're also more apathetic from what I see, and they're just trying to get by. And there's also paranoia with the KMT camp. I mean, there's paranoia in general, but with people who are pro KMT, who are pro engagement with China, They have memories of Li Denghui, the KMT leader, who was kind of like a double agent, seemed to be helping create the DPP, helping create Taiwanese independence, while having famous clips of saying, Chinese people are all brothers on both sides of the Taiwan Strait. And so with Zheng Li, when going to meet Trump, I think in June, I don't know if she's meeting Trump actually, but she's going to the States to meet a lot of American politicians and think tankers. And so there are people who say, oh, this is KMT. Again, they're going to play both sides. They say what we want to hear in terms of peace and reunification and love with China, but then they also want to keep the Americans happy. So this might just be another case of forever strategic ambiguity. But there are also people who say that's not the case. We're seeing a different environment and energy and ambiance with the new KMT chairwoman, and she's kind of a hardline about not wanting Taiwan to be in an adversarial position with China. So we'll see how her trip in Washington goes, and we'll see how Washington responds. I'm guessing that the Americans will keep trying to use Taiwan as a thorn against China's side for as long as possible.
Yeah, but it is kind of weird if she doesn't want China to be an adversary, then to make a trip to the United States. That doesn't make sense.
Maybe
I do understand the people in Taiwan if they think like, oh yeah, it's going to be in the old, in the old way again.
It might be some sort of strategy or obligation even that we're not privy to. I don't know. Like I don't know for sure. But there are people who believe the Taiwanese politicians are very much influenced and under control of Americans.
How do the people think about that?
I think people don't, like if you talk to, uh, in general, it's considered not polite to talk about politics in Taiwan. So, people that I talk to who I don't know well, they usually just make one or two comments. And it's like, yeah, what are we going to do? Yeah, I know, but what are we going to do? That's sort of the most common sentiment I see. And then the second most common sentiment is, I don't want to fight. What are we fighting for? And then if I talk to friends and family, they might have higher level information, they might be dialed in, but for the most part it's like, yeah, we can talk about it a bit, but I don't really want to talk about it because I'm sick of it, and I don't see what talking about it's going to do. I think Taiwanese people, they're interesting because they'll get very passionate about voting, they'll get very passionate about getting involved, but they at the same time they'll be like, I don't know if this is going to do much. So it's like they know that the chances are low, but they still keep trying. They'll participate for the most part.
So it seems like they kind of have given up.
I think some of them have this maybe a bit of a black pill view that Taiwan is a bit of a pawn, and that ultimately the Taiwan question is a question that will be decided by America and China. It doesn't matter if Taiwanese vote in a certain way. Ultimately, this is a foreign policy issue, and foreign policy is decided by those with the most power. So I think there's a sizable amount of Taiwanese people who would agree with that statement.
But don't they want to have their own sovereignty over their foreign power?
Taiwanese people,
Yeah.
maybe the Taiwanese independence people. I mean, back in the day, Taiwanese Chinese nationalists would have wanted to take back mainland China. I think most of them see it as an impossibility now. Um, the Taiwanese people who are maybe less adept with geopolitics and global politics. They might believe that Taiwan has a chance to be completely sovereign and one day abandon the Republic of China constitution. But I think most people know that that's not possible once they get into it.
But don't they want to? I mean, to make their own decisions. What I actually meant, when I said sovereign, I meant sovereign from United States influence to influence their politics.
I think I think that's the trend. I think in the past, America was seen as a savior. You know, when during the Civil War between mainland and Taiwan and KMT. But now I think that number that sees America as a savior is smaller, and the number that sees China as an absolute monster is smaller. I think Taiwanese are very stubborn, and we've been in sort of a unique mental situation for a long time. So Taiwanese will accept Chinese rise when China is really, really like ahead. And I think China has to leave Taiwan in awe. That's when Taiwan will say, okay, we want sovereignty under guidance of China. Like maybe Taiwan will be a special autonomous region, and we can accept that, and we don't want to keep giving all our money away to America. That is a line of thinking that I'm hearing more. You know, if we didn't have to spend all this money uh, satisfying the American military industrial complex, we could do this in Taiwan. We could do that in Taiwan. We could fix this up. So this kind of thinking is starting to emerge, which you would have never heard 5, 10 years ago.
What are the things
At least
that
on TV.
so? What are the things that the people in Taiwan actually want to see that it's going to be fixed? Like, I mean, is it infrastructure, schooling, or whatever is it that's on their mind right now? That's their problem.
Off the top of my head, I've heard policemen and firefighters protest. There have been, I think, deaths that could have been avoided with firefighters, lack of equipment, lack of, standards. Um, People want sidewalks. You know, people go to fourth tier, third tier cities in China, and they go, "This is a
Yeah,
rural area, and there's still nice sidewalks." People definitely want that. What else? Taiwan has a reputation for being very good for medical care, but I think nurses and doctors are feeling the squeeze, and they would like some positive changes as well. And in terms of energy, energy has been a big debate for a long time. Like that Angelica woman from Typology. She
yeah,
used to be pro Taiwanese independence, but she started making the switch because of DPP's energy policy. You know, she's an expert in nuclear energy, and it was like how can we shut down our nuclear power plants in Taiwan? What's our long term plan? And it would seem like there isn't much of a long term plan with the DPP with energy. So and energy is not something people think about until they're out of it, until they're low,
yeah.
and then it's like the biggest deal in the world, right? Every country needs energy.
It's the same like money, right? You keep spending it
Mhm.
until it's gone, and then oh, I should have,
Yeah,
I should
yeah,
have saved a little bit, right?
yeah.
It's just human nature. I mean, everybody does it. I mean, would you think? And I think nobody. There's almost no citizens in the world that would think maybe we should do a little bit more, take it more easy on our energy or on our gas, right? No, they don't think like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, only if the prices goes up, and then all of a sudden it will be. I
that's
remember
right.
when I was young, we still had that. Yeah, we still had. My mother was extreme. She was like, no more than 5 minutes shower. She will pull you out. She will pull you out. At night, the heater is going off. You don't need to have heat in your sleep. Yeah. Um, so, how about
Different times.
Yeah, different times. And then it changed, right? And now it's changing back again because it's
Mhm.
getting so expensive for people that a lot of people also with food, they're like, oh yeah, let me just eat 1 or 2 times no meat in the week during the week, right? Well, when my mother was born, that was the other way around.
Mhm.
And then it was eating meat was maybe if you were lucky, it was 1 or 2 times a week, right?
Yeah,
Because it was right after the war.
that's
So
right.
yeah, as you see, times always change up and down. Can't help it. So, how do the people actually feel about the general feeling of the people about Chen Yuan going to China, to the mainland? How is it? How do the people take it? I saw a couple of very enthusiastic and very negative people. Uh, why are there people that viewing this as a negative? That is
I think I think there is a strong vocal minority, and they're very strong haters. And these people, from what I see, they usually have more time on their hands. They have more money, and they can sit around being hateful online. And some of these people are kind of stuck in time. Like I said, they still think America is a savior. America is still in a golden age. China is still poor and backwards, and in the Cultural Revolution era, and basically any sort of engagement with China is seen as evil. Any sort of effort to understand the mainland Chinese perspective is evil. And I think you can find these people in Canada too. You can find these people in America, everywhere. In Canada, these people would be the Maple MAGA people. They're often low information, and they have some discriminatory beliefs. There are, Taiwanese people. The image is that Taiwanese people are all warm and gentle and kind, but there are racist Taiwanese, and there are Taiwanese who believe they're very much superior to mainland Chinese, which is funny considering that 95% of Taiwanese are Han Chinese, right?
yeah,
And so it is a bit of a mental acrobatics to say that we are Taiwanese and not Chinese when our constitution states we are the Republic of China. So it is a weird mental game, but I would say most Taiwanese people support it, support Chen Liwen's trip to mainland China. You might have seen on TV before her trip, people were making fun of her. The experts, some talking heads, some pundits, they were making fun of her, calling her naive, calling her this, that, and the other. But Zheng Liwen didn't come from like, an easy path. And she used to be in the DPP. She used to support Taiwanese independence. She's not some fool. She's gone through the spectrum, and everything has been lived experience. And it is her contention, along with my position, that engagement and diplomacy and good faith talks with mainland China is the best for Taiwan. And I think people are seeing that. Um, After her trip, there was that uptick, like I mentioned, over 20% of Taiwanese people in that poll now support some aspect of engagement and peaceful dialogue with mainland China. And this is a considerable number, considering that um, most people just wanted status quo and they don't want to talk about reunification at all, whether it's peaceful or not. And so I think people are seeing more and more. Like it might be very obvious to you, Mr. Fong, and people like you, but in Taiwan, even if people know the truth, they're just constantly bombarded by the media.
mhm.
So people might people might support this engagement with China, but they'll still have paranoia and doubts in their mind. They'll think, well, you know, maybe mainland China ultimately they just want to exploit and abuse Taiwan. And this DPP line of 糖衣毒药, everything that China offers is poison wrapped in sugar. And so, you know, the Taiwanese people struggle with this constant media paranoia. But then suddenly one goes to mainland China, and the way Xi Jinping talks and the way Beijing responds in terms of offering material benefits that list, agricultural benefits, travel benefits, and Xi Jinping so very clearly states that there's nothing we can't negotiate as Chinese compatriots on both sides of the Taiwan Strait. I think this kind of talk does help. But at the same time, the situation is complicated because Western warships still come close to Taiwan and mainland China. So China still has to show that it's a serious strength and force to be taken seriously, because without military power, there is no political power, right? And especially dealing with America. So I think this then makes Taiwanese people go, "Oh, you see, they talk nice to us, but China still has this military posture." And then they have to understand that this military posture is against the American empire. So this goes back to what I said before, that ultimately China needs to rise so much, it has to shock the Taiwanese in a good way. Otherwise, the Taiwanese are just kind of stuck in this game, this quagmire.
Yeah, but yeah, so yeah, it's very hard for them. So they don't understand there's cause and effect. I mean, if China is doing a military drill, there's obviously a reason for it, right? It always has been a certain reason. So just don't do those things and nothing will happen, right? I mean, China isn't going anywhere, right? The mainland stays the mainland, and it just cannot move. It cannot just pick up the ground and move it somewhere in the North Sea here, right here in Europe, right? It's just impossible. So neither can Taiwan do that, right? They cannot just drift off like a floating island. It's just stuck there, right? So they should
Yeah,
find a way to have to be good with the neighbors at least, right? Even if they
definitely.
even if they don't feel as a part of the mainland, it is only beneficial to them to have a good relationship.
Yeah, I think it's just like geography is destiny, some say. And it's just the nature of the human condition and the media. I definitely support what China is doing in terms of pushing back against the First Island chain and American hegemony in the Taiwan region. But by nature of doing these military drills, you will cause that rift. Do you know what I mean? There will always be some people who don't understand.
Yeah.
And the people who do understand, they might be challenged in their position by the society. So that's the picture I'm trying to paint. Where just this Taiwan is this place. It's this tiny island with a big condensed population, and it's just a constant arguing and back and forth, and yeah.
Yeah, so there were a couple of things also that the mainland said that they would do right after the visit
Mhm.
with regards to Taiwan. What is the main things for the people that stood out for them? So they were talking about transportation and connectivity, economic and trade incentives, cultural and people-to-people exchange, political engagement. So what is actually for the people that the people think it's their number one category
I
to
think economics. I think any sort of entrepreneur or business owner, they're very happy with these talks. I haven't looked into it with enough detail to say for sure, but from what I saw, I think farmers are very happy. Farmers and agricultural producers have often been the victim of these political maneuvers between Taiwan and China. And so I think economics. Yeah, economics is the most important.
Yeah. So how is the economic status right now for the working class? Not for the elite, but just for the working class. How are they surviving?
The younger generations are definitely lying flat, 躺平. They're just doing what they can to survive and trying to enjoy life without thinking about the future too much. The average wage is like the ratio is 15 times to buy a house in Taipei. So to buy a home is out of reach for most people in Taiwan now. Um, I think minimum wage has not risen enough, is the common feedback, and I think the economic outlook has not been as good in the last 10 years, and it's on a downward trend. This like I mentioned, the stock market is doing good. AI and TSMC is doing good overall, but I think people who are outside of TSMC, outside of AI, with more regular jobs, it doesn't look so good. So Taiwan's future, in my opinion, depends on mainland China. Taiwan already depends on mainland
Yeah.
China right now in
Yeah, I
terms
was
of
about to
economy.
say they already do, right?
Yeah, but for the young people to have a workable future, a decent future, we must engage with mainland China in good faith. We don't have the chips to be in an adversarial position anymore. We've been in an adversarial position for 10 years now, and the result is not much other than international recognition. Um, we need material results in Taiwan. We need material changes, and I think young people will definitely tell you that. Young adults, early 20s, early 30s, I think they will tell you that.
Yeah, the house got so expensive. Is it due to speculation?
Housing has always been expensive in Taiwan. Thankfully, rent is not as bad, and yes, it's definitely due to speculation and the small landmass, how concentrated livable areas are in Taiwan, and also the buying a house is sort of uh, integral to what a Chinese person calls success, owning a home. So it's part of the culture. Yeah.
Yeah, it's everywhere. It's the same.
Mhm.
uh, yeah. So, how do they feel about what the situation is right now when they see all these wars around them? Are they maybe scared they're going to be sacrificed?
Well, you would hope that people would wake up, right? You would hope to see, with what we're seeing with Ukraine and Iran, and even the quick operation in Venezuela. You would hope that people are waking up. There is a small percentage, like I mentioned, that supports America, no matter what it seems. But yeah, the majority, I think, are watching it. That's why Zheng Liwen's speech went viral. She was talking about, if does Taiwan want to be Ukraine number two, and she was comparing the facts and the conditions of Ukraine versus Taiwan and the strength of Russia versus China. And she's like, if you look at all of these factors, it is very clear that it is doomed for Taiwan to become the Ukraine of Asia.
Yeah.
You know, it is doom. It is absolute doom. And
How was that speech received by the people? I mean, on both sides.
I think it was well received. I think I think the DPP people and the Greenbirds, Qinniao as they're called, you can see a shift. You can see that the people who are anti-China when they are affected by these viral moments because it's rooted in facts and logic. And you're seeing posts from the Greenbirds. The Greenbirds are the hardcore DPP supporters and also part of the net army that really controlled the narrative in Taiwan. Um, a Taiwanese YouTuber did the investigation and found that on Taiwanese threads, there's millions of fake users controlling Taiwanese narrative. Threads is very popular in Taiwan. So you can see that these Greenbirds, these hardcore DPP supporters, they're starting to make posts like, "Oh, I can't support this anymore. I can't watch this anymore. I can't keep arguing like this," because they know in their hearts that they're being illogical or they're being fraudulent or dishonest or they're being ideological, way too ideological. So there definitely is a shift. I Unless there's some sort of weird moves or scummy moves being pulled, I think that the chances of DPP winning the next election are very, very low. And then we have local elections coming up in November. And I think white and blue, KMT and TPP, hopefully they'll work together better this time. So we'll see. There's still a lot of time for BS to happen. In terms of peaceful reunification, I still think it's at least 5 to 10 years away because there's a lot of kinks to be worked out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully, the first step is we stop this adversarial position. DPP loses the next election, and we go from there. We restore the 1992 consensus. We honor it fully, and we go from there.
Yeah. All right. Oh, there was a lot. It's such a short time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Oh, I have to go soon, so we should probably wrap it up.
Yeah. That was what I was thinking about. Because we already did a lot in such a short time, right? Well, I want to thank you. Let the people know where they can find you for the people who see you for the first time.
Oh, yeah, sounds good. My username on all platforms is Jambuki888, Jambuki. This name came to me one day when I was meditating. Apparently, it's a Hindu goddess of sorts, and yeah, you can find me there. And yeah, thanks for having me, Mr. Fong. It was great. Always good to come on your show.
Oh, thank you. The pleasure is always mine. Thank you for your time and hope to see you next time. All right.
Okay. See you next time.